So let's now talk about sharing how all of this translates into real-world impact, which is to do with scale. Please welcome someone who brings with him a deep understanding of what it takes to build relevance in a fast-changing consumer market. Please put your hands together for Dr. Angelo George, CEO, Bisleri.
Thank you, Network 18 and distinguished speakers, esteemed guests. It's a great privilege to be speaking about the word that's in the middle as part of the theme, which is about the planet. One of the most pressing challenges of today is about scarcity of fresh water. And I'm going to share our pioneering work in terms of developing a concept called water credits. That could be an interesting approach to mitigate the issue in terms of promoting conservation. Let me share the context here. We are blessed with 18% of the world's population, but we have just about 4% of the groundwater. And over the last 70 years, the per capita availability has come down by almost 1/4. And if it is going to continue, then we're going to be in serious trouble. You can see certain parts of the country being completely overexploited. And the graph you see out there, that's going to be the reality which is going to hit us as we age and our generation that's ahead. And if we think the glacier melt is actually going to take care of this, I think it's wrong. That's a picture taken on 21st of January. The eastern part of Himalayas, you can hardly see any ice. Now, that's portending real serious trouble for us. But I think it's important for us to understand how this entire groundwater or surface water consumption happens in India. It's almost 85% by agriculture. Industry is about 8%. But while industry is 8%, there is a good amount of robust data that's available about industrial consumption. And you'd be wondering what I am talking about water when we are one of the largest water companies, one of the most loved brands. Now, one of the challenges, even from a brand angle for us, as a legacy brand, is about sustaining this excitement and engagement with consumers. So you can see that we have refreshed our brand communication. In fact, Bisleri is one of the largest in sporting associations, right from marathon to chess. I mean, even for chess, you need to be well hydrated to think clearly. So we've been strengthening the proposition of hydration, which is what Bisleri is all about. But when we went to consumers, something interesting we discovered is that the consumers, the youth particularly, are increasingly preferring brands that are responsible and accountable for environment. And that led us to think about our two sustainability challenges, which is both plastic and water. Now, without water, we don't even have a business. So we said we have to do something about it, and that's the genesis of the Bisleri Greener Promise. We have two actions under this. One is about plastic recycling, and the second is about water conservation. I'm going to be talking about the first part, the naive myth, today. Before I proceed further, I would like to reassure the audience that we are one of the first companies in India to become plastic neutral and water positive. And water positive by a significant margin. We replenish 4.7 times the water that we take out from the ground. And I'm sure all of us are aware that we sell millions of cartons every day. How do we go about doing this? The first is about getting our efficiencies right. We have the best-in-class efficiencies in terms of processing at our factories and the rainwater harvesting. Equally, we ensure that our business model is distributed, so we don't have the mega plants. It's medium scale. So we're able to replenish water in the watershed by adopting water bodies and ponds and in the vicinity. We also extend our work into rural by building check dams, 300 plus, which is helping farmers in terms of improving their livelihood. And the last one you see out there is interesting. You know, we sponsor the Ladakh Marathon. It's a 180-kilometer sport. We were placing the water bottles on the road, and the villagers came and asked us, we don't have water around the year and you guys are placing these bottles on the road. Can you help us? And what you see out there is the third lake that we have built for villagers in Leh. That's at an altitude of about 12,000 feet. So every year with Ladakh Marathon, we inaugurate one reservoir, and we call it the Reservoir of Hope. So it's around this time, around 2022, then we started thinking that if as an organization we have been able to turn around things and become positive, what do we do to impact the larger ecosystem? What's a concept or a thought that we can possibly develop? So we had a discussion and said if carbon credits as a concept could drive organizations and countries to contain emissions, can a concept of water credits be developed on similar grounds? Now, obviously, first we had to understand carbon credits, so I spent about 6-7 months studying carbon credits, the way it is structured, the markets, the enabling systems, and the sequence of events that happened in terms of creating that entire market where emission control was being rewarded and which could be kind of traded. But having worked on it for about 6-7 months, I understood that there's a huge difference. Carbon is universal. When you burn stubble in Punjab, we start coughing in Delhi. But when Punjab had floods, I don't think the neighboring states other than for the tributaries got impacted. So water has a local context. So we said we need to study this, and we don't have the capability in-house. So we said we should rope in academics who have done extensive work in this, and that led us to collaborating with Dr. Arun Kansal and team of TERI. And what we did was we said, okay, we should first look at what are the existing stuff that's available in terms of national and international policies. And in this process, we discovered that there are countries like China, Morocco, Kenya, who have done very interesting work in terms of conserving water, rewarding conservation, preventing sedimentation, and also about managing the wastewater. There are also countries like Chile who have gone about separating the water rights to land rights that treated as two separate entities. And in the Murray-Darling Basin of Australia, there has been an interesting concept which was developed. And the latest in terms of from a demand side, the United States launching the California Water Index in Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So there are a lot of things happening around the world. We said we should assimilate and bring all that. Secondly, we said if we are going to talk about industry to start this concept with, we need to understand the true impact of water footprint of a business. When you run a business, what happens in terms of water footprint? And we should look at different terrains because water has got a local context. So the same business in a water scarce area, what is the footprint? And in a water rich area, what is the footprint? And finally, the work we do needs to be universally good, adaptable, and a toolkit needs to be generated. We started this work in October 22, and in May, our Honorable Prime Minister kicked off this mission LIFE, where environment-friendly actions were to be rewarded with green credits. That's a concept. While the frameworks and the platforms are being built, the idea was that you do something good for the environment, it should be rewarded and it should be tradable. And interestingly, water is the second item that got featured, and our work, which was happening parallelly, was perfectly aligned. Now, obviously, the point out there that there has to be an equivalence of effort. Saving water in a Kerala versus saving water in a Rajasthan need to be compensated differently. This is something interesting because that's a contrast between water and carbon in terms of when you start looking at it. Water's impact is watershed specific. And the second part about regulation, the global frameworks which have evolved over a period of time on carbon. But even in India, the first regulation in water was in 1882. The Indian Eastman's Act by the British India. From there till the model groundwater rules, which is the latest modification of 2017, the administration of water or the water governance in India is still fragmented. There are 20 states under Central Groundwater Authority and the balance state manage themselves. There's no uniform policy in that sense. So that's also one challenge when you start looking at it. And obviously, if you are setting up a factory, like I said, in a water scarce area, you have to bear a penalty for that. And if you are actually doing some compensatory activity in terms of saving, then there should be a positive factor. We said we should factor this. And the premise was that when we look at water, what we always look at was like we have got 92% conversion efficiency, which is within the fence. When I extract water, how much do I convert to a bottle of Bisleri? But my business has to be accountable from where am I sourcing my PET and where am I reaching it to the consumer. The entire supply chain piece, the entire value chain needs to be accounted for, and that is what we said we should go about. The operational footprint, the logistics, and the packaging, and including the energy component part of it. And this I had already explained that there has to be a positive factor for good work and there has to be a negative factor for the choices which an organization makes. And we said we should try and do this work in terms of the study in two of our own factories. One was in Maharashtra, a very water-rich area. You can see that the watershed itself is about 982 square kilometers. And the watershed in Saibabad is about 141 square kilometers. We went into the watershed and the micro watershed using some of the latest digital elevation models to assess what is the water flow and how does it flow through and what is the catchment for that. You can see that in Saibabad, the only water body around is a Ghazipur drain, which is transporting the effluent water of Delhi city. This is the summary of our results at the end of a one-year study. So it passed through all seasons. You can see that when we looked at the Sahibabad factory, 84% of the water consumption we were able to compensate. You can see the green offset over there through the conservation methods. But we discovered that the in-plant or within the fence consumption related to only 9% of our water footprint. 90% was actually outside the fence from where our plastic or packaging material was coming in and where we were distributing this product. So the packaging material, the supply chain, and energy. Now, one of the interesting pieces was that solar energy possibly could reduce the footprint by 6%. So it was a wake-up call for us. We said, why don't we just do it immediately? So we partnered with the solar energy, alternate energy providers now. And as we speak, about 35% of our energy consumption has actually moved to alternate energy, renewable energy. Obviously, don't worry too much. This is available on Terry and Bisleri website. The complex formula of calculation was quite rigorous. Now, this is something interesting. Actually, to make a bottle, 1 liter of Bisleri, if I were to go by just within the plant, I require 1.08 liters. But when I look at this entire piece, it's 14 liters of water I need in Sahibabad and 10 liters in Kamshed. And if I were to make a soft drink, which is taken from the Coca-Cola study, their own study on public domain, it takes 56 liters of water to produce 1 liter of Coca-Cola. That's a true water footprint of the business. So we said, okay, this needs to be a template that is adaptable for anybody. And that's a template which you find, which is part of the study. Any industry can input their values and the water footprint will emerge. Useful for in terms of business. These are some of the suggestions that we have to the policymakers at the end of this. One, it has come out very clearly that water has got a local context and hence need to be impact adjusted footprint, not just within the fence. That's point number one. Point number two, if this water credits has to become a reality, there has to be a monetary value, maybe a cap and trade system like what is emerged in carbon markets need to be put into place. Maybe something is underway. What is interesting for us in our kind of markets is about water responsibility based or sustainability based label, like you have in the electric appliances, the star rating. Can we have them so the consumers then look at the label and make informed choices? So our efforts then gets recognized by greater consumer preference. Water has a social aspect to it. The rich and the poor, overexploitation. So we need to be worried about the social context. And at the end of it, 85% of fresh water is being consumed by agriculture. It has to move into water prudent crops and water efficient irrigation. We followed this up in the next year. In fact, last year, in 2025, we released the next report in Raisina Dialogues here. This was about understanding the value of water. How do we price it then? And that's the second report which we published. The role of water in terms of sustaining ecosystems. And if we were to try and do the model for monetizing water conservation, we have proposed some things in this report as you see. So in summary, it was about establishing baselines. So we have to start somewhere. If water scarcity is an issue facing us, don't wait for that 85% to get it right. Let us start with 8%, which is the industry, where data is available. This thought can kick off today in the industry. You have the template, you just need the enabling rules and regulations to be put into place. And we really hope that our pioneering work will be a practical guide for developing the framework for this entire activity. And my point is, over 70 years, we managed to deplete the groundwater by 1/4. Can we turn it around in the next 70 and become water positive? With science, policy, community participation, and industry practices, I believe we can, and water credits as a concept could play a huge role in this. Thank you, Network 18, once again for this opportunity.